My mom used to ask me this question when I was little, which is, Eric, do you know the best way to get over a fence? And I would say, no. And she said, the best way to get over a fence is to throw your hat over it, because then you have to figure out a way to get over the fence. That is what we're going to talk about today, throwing your hat over the fence. Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. My name is Erik Orton.
I'm Emily Orton.
And here we talk about personal growth, family connection, and raising adult kids because we want you to make the most of your midlife. So, Emily, today we're going to talk about this concept. Where do we teach this?
Okay, I did not grow up with this idea of throwing your hat over the fence, and I didn't wear a big hat. So I just always imagine Indiana Jones, because for whatever reason, he has this like really strong attachment to his hat, and you know, he might be just getting out of a death trap by the skin of his teeth, and he'll realize his hat fell off, and he'll like reach back and grab his hat out before the trap door closes, or you know, something like that. So I always imagine the hat being like this hat that you just love so much that you're not willing to lose it. And that's how the metaphor works, because you're throwing out there something that you really care about. You're putting something on the line that you're like, I now have to figure out how to make this work. This is a concept that we teach in our private one-on-one coaching. If you're, doing a life design, or you have some big project, and mostly helping you break through the fears that are and worries that are getting you in your own way. And this is one of the strategies that we have, or principles really, that we've used throughout our life to do it. I'll share a very simple, basic example of how I use the throwing your hat over the fence approach to things that are challenging to me.
Can I jump before you tell this story?
Ooh.
Can I give an example of a hat story, like an Indiana Jones hat story that's not an Indiana Jones hat story?
I mean, I have no idea what you're about to say.
So we were taking our kids out sailing for the first time overnight. Do you remember this? We were in Florida, in the Florida Keys. It was right after Christmas, and our son Eli had actually just gotten, as a Christmas gift, an Indiana Jones fedora.
Yeah, it was something like that. I think it was a different character, but
it was a fedora.
Yeah.
And anyway, we were out sailing. It was our first night, and we were kind of racing to get to our anchorage before dark.
Because we did not know how to anchor in the dark.
And we didn't. Anyway, so there was a lot of tension in the air, and Eli was running around deck. He was so excited, and he had his hat on. And then next thing we know, he's screaming his head off. And we thought he had cut his arm off or something. And we check on him, and he's looking back behind the boat, and his hat is floating in the water because it blew off his head. And he cared about that hat, maybe more than Indiana Jones.
Maybe. Well, we definitely went to extremes to try to chase it down. I remember that is when we discovered that our boat, which should have been equipped with at least one, if not two, boat hooks, was equipped with 0 boat hooks.
True story.
And so then we had to think, like, what else could we use? And thankfully, he had also been gifted a Nerf sword.
With a hilt that had a hooky kind of design to it.
And so our Captain Dad,
flipped
the boat around to
we did a man overboard drill.
Yep, to do the requisite figure 8.
And we had somebody on deck pointing at the hat so that we would not lose track of our hat overboard.
Mm-hmm.
We did the figure 8, and we came around and we scooped it up with
the hilt of this Nerf sword.
The hat was recovered.
Triumph.
So to your point, the hat has to be something that you care about. Maybe not as much as Eli cared about this hat, but it has to be something that that's skin in the game. It's some kind of risk or investment on your part.
Yeah, once you put that on the line, you want to get it back.
So I'm very sorry to kind of like jump in right before your story. So now I want you to
dramatic.
So I want you to because in this story there's something that you care about, and I just want to highlight that.
So
an example
in my story, my small example of how I use this is in planning birthday parties for my kids, because I want them to feel that we're happy they were born, that we want to celebrate them, that we want to make it a party and a good time, but I sort of dread planning the celebrations, coming up with the food and the games and the gifts. And
I'll bet you there are no parents out there that can relate to your feelings on this subject. You are
uh,
alone in a category of your own.
it's just me. I'm the only one. Like, I love my kid and I want them to feel that love, but I haven't always loved planning the parties. And so what I would do is I would send out the invitations. I would pick a date and a time, and I would send out the invitations to all of the invitees. And then I would think, well, now I have to plan a party
So,
because people are going to come,
so
and I have to be ready to meet them. And and it mattered to me because I did want our kids to feel that love. But that just helped me get out the door and get things happening and get a little fire under my butt.
all right. So because I want to follow through on this because I think this is an excellent example. You say I'm going to throw out, this is the classic save the date
Mm-hmm.
invite. We're going to have a party, and then if you didn't follow through with it, then what?
Then people would show up at our house at that time and nothing would be happening, or I would have to call everybody and cancel and say we've actually decided not to celebrate our child's birthday this year,
We
or
don't
we're not going to have a
care that they were
party.
born. That's the
Like, it went to there was these two conflicts, right? My deep mothering instinct and what I want to do for them, but also this, like, ugh, not loving to plan parties. And it's a good thing I did, because this past year I ended up having to plan 2 weddings, and I did something pretty similar where I had to have a few things in place, because for weddings your invitations have to be like matching themey and whatnot. So I would get a few ideas under my belt, but I would send out the invitation and be like, okay, now I got to collect, you know. You had to have the venue and send out your invites, but after that I was like, okay, now I have to fill in all the blanks between here and there so we can celebrate these occasions. Anyway, those are just some really typical kind of everyday examples that might be relatable to anybody, because we all have special things to celebrate, and we all are the host at some point, whether we love that role or whether it's a little more of a challenge, like it is for me.
So another example of throwing your hat over the fence. This is also, this was an opportunity where there was something I really, really wanted to do in college. I really wanted to write a musical, and I had gotten myself in a situation where I was in a playwriting class, which felt like a really cool opportunity for me. I'd never taken a playwriting class, and it felt risky because I didn't know what I was doing.
Maybe
And
that's why they had a class for it.
it,
For people who don't know how to write plays, you should take this class called playwriting.
yeah, and I think it was playwriting 101, whatever.
Mm.
But there was maybe 10 of us in there. And one of the students was a grad student. I was a young underclassman, didn't know what that was exactly. So, but one day she came into class and she said, hey, so I'm writing a play, but I'm not writing a musical. This is like a baby step to writing a musical.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, hey, I want to do this thing called platform productions, where we just take student written projects that are a work in progress and we present them in a very minimal way in a theater in front of an audience. And I'm going to be organizing it. And it's going to be a series of new works. Does anybody have anything that they would like to share? It has to be a 1-act piece. And I raised my hand and I said, I do. And she said, great. And she said, what's it called? I said, Esther. She
I
said,
don't even know if you had a
oh,
title yet when
really?
you volunteered, because you came home and were like, what should I write?
Okay. Maybe I didn't even have a title. So I was like, I do. It's going to be a musical. And she's like, okay, great. I'll put you down for one musical coming right up.
Yeah, like on this day at this time.
And she set a date on the calendar. Like, this is when we'll be doing the performances. And I came home and I told Emily, I was like, my musical is being performed. And I told her the date and the venue. And I think you said,
and then you asked me, like, what do you think I should write about? Like I have to write a musical now.
And we ended up settling on the Old Testament story of Esther, which is why, that's that's how it played out. But I can't.
Yeah, I just remember like we don't have to come up with something from scratch. Let's tell a story that's been told. This one has lots of exciting reversals, and it's short enough you could do it as a one act, and it
Yeah,
has female leads, which was like
it was easier to
a thing
find
at the
performers.
time because we wanted to give more women have opportunities to play leads.
And so by throwing my hat over and the hat that I threw over was my reputation, I guess, by saying, "Hey, I'm going to do this," and I committed to it, and it really did motivate me. And I wrote that musical so fast, and so like to this day, I've never actually written out all the music, like notated it. It's just like chicken scratch that's enough for me to remember it, and I recorded it onto a tape at the time, and so they're recording, and I could play it from my chicken scratch, but to this day, like it's never actually been notated.
And the whole process was just repeatedly throwing your hat over the fence because after you um, set that date on the calendar and committed out loud to another person and organization, you had to post something saying, "Hey, I'm writing a musical, and I have a musical, and I need you to come rehearse it." And you scheduled rehearsal space and time, and then like
Auditions
basically every week before rehearsal, you were just finishing up the scenes and music for that week, and then racing over to the room to run it.
to teach it. Yeah,
Yeah, you were like, well, people are coming to rehearsals, so I better have something ready for them.
yeah, that's true.
and
I'd
and you
forgotten
did
about
the
that part.
whole thing um, by the hat over the fence methodology.
It worked, Mom.
Thanks,
It
Mom.
worked. So okay,
You know what? I would actually say this one thing that I love is that before Erik was ready to talk to me about possibly getting married, he had a brave moment and he decided to write it in a letter. But the letter said, like, do not open until some future date. But
oh yeah,
he wrote the letter when he was feeling brave, kind of threw his hat over the fence. And then at that future date, when we were going to open it, I was going to see what was inside. And he was either going to have to make good on that or be like, I changed my mind. But he just like, you put it out there so that you couldn't talk yourself out of it because you knew you maybe would get nervous in the future.
okay, yeah. So let's drill
I don't
down.
want to tell the whole story, but
No,
just,
that's
yeah.
okay. And well, we ended up getting married, so
We're
it
married.
clearly worked. So if you want to get married, throw your hat over the fence. Is that no? Anyway, um, I think that it's important that it's something that requires either follow through or a loss,
Mm.
because lots of people, let's say you set a dental appointment, and if you don't follow through, if there's a consequence.
They're going to charge you $75 for not showing up.
Yeah, whereas
Right?
if and then let's say you sign up for a webinar and you don't show up, the
You get the
webinar,
replay.
they like, oh, hey, sorry I didn't make it, here's the replay, watch it. There's no consequence for not showing up, really,
Mm-hmm.
except you might miss the live Q&A or something like that. But signing up for a webinar is not throwing your hat over the fence. And so there are things that you can do where like you're committing and you stand to lose if you don't follow through. And that's what motivates us to do the thing that we want to do, because if we do this strategically, we're throwing our hat over the fence for something that we actually want in our lives, but we're just a little bit scared, and it helps us get enough courage. We teach this under the section of our framework called casting off, because casting off is actually a very emotionally scary experience. It's actually separating from the thing that you know or have done before and launching into the new. And once you make that separation, it's very hard to undo it. And so when you throw your hat over the fence, it's a way of sort of giving yourself the courage to take the leap. You obligate yourself. So
Yeah.
a couple more. Should we talk about a couple more examples of
Just,
this?
yeah, tell us like two of your favorite throwing your hat over the fence stories. I think everyone has the idea and can
Well,
try to apply it
let's talk. Did you mention
to a
the boat
brave
earlier? Did you
moment.
mention buying our boat earlier?
I didn't, but I
Okay.
mean, for us, for example, like I'll say one and you say that just signing up. So, okay. Hey, new listeners. We're the Ortons, and we didn't know anything about sailing when we decided we're going to live on a boat for a year. It took us a little while to get ready, and we wrote a book about it called 7 at Sea, which came out 5 years ago, and we're
Happy
celebrating
5-year
all the
anniversary
month of
book.
March that we did this. And this is one of the, we went and lived on this sailboat for a year with our 5 kids. And one of the ways that we threw our hat over the fence was by signing up to take sailing classes. It was for us, it felt like a high financial threshold. And Erik
We were very poor.
Erik signed up for the classes, and he ended up signing up for all 4 of us to take, like me and our 2 oldest daughters, so that we could get a captain to go out with us and teach us. And we weren't sure how we were going to afford it. He signed up for the lessons, and then he went and found a second job to make it happen. Because if you didn't go find a second job, you were not going to get to take those sailing lessons. Like, you wanted to learn how to do it. So you put it on the calendar.
I think we'd
and
already
then,
paid for them. And so it was, like
yeah, we had to figure it out.
how to pay our credit card bill.
Oh yeah, maybe that's how it was. Anyway, that was one of the things where we threw our hat over the fence and put ourselves on the line.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we did have to figure out how to afford it after we'd made the commitment.
Just to get started. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to get out the gates.
Hmm.
So fast forward a few years, we had some sailing skills.
Sorry, just that example was also making me think of some of the theater productions I'd done where I just said, I'm going to put this on my credit card and figure
We're not trying to give you financial advice on
so
this show, but we will. Yeah, it's true. Erik wrote a musical that was so well received in the university setting that we went back to Washington, D.C., where we both grew up, and you signed up to get on a local or regional. It was a local theater.
It was local, but yeah, same kind of a thing. Like, hey, I have a show, and I'm sure I'll be able to figure out a way to cast it
and produce it
and fund it. And so I just committed to the theater for the days that
they had available.
And then I went to work figuring out how to do it.
Yeah, how we flew out our cast and all that stuff, which it worked out. You figured it out, and you paid back our credit card, and for our friends in our age group, had enough money left over to purchase a CD burner so we could make CDs of the musical to sell at future productions.
We reinvested the profits into our business.
Yes.
So producing a musical was another, producing it was another throwing our hat over the fence. I think the one that you're thinking of was when we bought our boat, because I don't know how many people listening have ever bought a sailboat, but we had never done it, and we didn't really know anybody that had done it. And so we were very scared to pull the trigger.
We had never even bought a house.
That's true.
So we had bought groceries and shoes and gas.
Had never had a mortgage. And so we were buying this boat, and this boat was in the Caribbean, and we'd never actually laid eyes on it. We'd hired somebody to go do an inspection, which they did. And we saw pictures and a whole report, but we'd never actually seen it. And here we were getting ready to wire money to an offshore bank account for a boat that we'd never seen. And we did it. There's a whole thing about figuring out what could go right that actually caused us to pull the trigger on this. But the point is that once we had done that, we were committed to what we're going to do. We were going to go live on a sailboat for a year with our kids.
Mm-hmm.
If we decided to not do that, we still had purchased a boat and would have to deal with that. And so we were very committed.
We were on the hook, as they say.
We were on the hook, and we had to figure out how to make this work. And we did. And the story is in the book, 7 at Sea, both buying the boat, everything leading up to it, and then the whole play out afterwards. And so anyway, here's the invitation to you, dear listener. If there's something that you really want in your life, and you need to give yourself a little bit of courage to get started, find a way to throw your hat over the fence. It might be sending out a save the date for a birthday party or a wedding, or it might be committing to deliver a script, or, I'm just referencing the examples that we've shared, but whatever the thing is that you want to do, find a way to commit something that's an investment where you would hate to lose whatever it is. And it's just it just makes it that much easier because you're motivating yourself to do the thing that you actually want to do. Because here's a little secret. It's actually really hard to get what you want.
Mm.
It's really hard for to allow your dreams to come true. And we talk ourselves out of it all the time. And so if you commit yourself in this way, you prevent yourself from talking yourself out of letting your dreams happen. And that's a good thing, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well said.
Thank you. So that's all I got. That's
all
I got.
I think that's important. And if you want to throw your hat over the fence to come sailing with us on one of the try a week living on a sailboat trips that we are offering in 2024, we are trying to make it as easy for you as possible. We're going to some beautiful destinations. You can click in the link below and see where we might be going. But if you put down your deposit before March 15th,
oh yeah, that's right,
you get $500 off. And I mean, is it really throwing your hat over the fence because the deposits are refundable
for a little bit?
Yeah, for like the first
30 days.
30 days. So I guess you could talk yourself back out of it again. But if you need help talking yourself into it, you want to throw your hat over the fence, you want to come on one of these mind-changing, heart-expanding, gorgeous trips that we go on, we'll just make it that much easier for you by giving you a sweet deal through the middle of March.
One caveat is you have to jump on a call with me first.
Oh, yeah.
Coming on these trips,
you got to go through the gauntlet of having a one-to-one conversation with Erik, who's like, what would be your dream trip?
Very rough. I'm very rough on everybody that I vet. No, you have.
What kind of activities would you like to do?
Yeah. So no, but I do talk with everybody before they come on the trip. You can't just sign up. So talk with me, and then. But if you talk with me and we find a trip that's a fit, and you put your deposit down by March 15th, yes, you get $500 off. So there's that to look forward to.
Yeah. Throw your hat over the fence sooner rather than later if that's something you're curious about.
Yep. They're filling up. So would love to, if it's something you want to do,
let's make it happen.
Let's make it happen.
Yeah.
All right. What could go right?
That's how we love to end this podcast, is just asking what could go right.